yesterday, so a lot of these games are fresh in his mind. I asked him how the tourney experience was overall and if there was anything that he wanted to change and suggest about it. He said there was a bit of confusion with the time zones and the bracket. Other than that, I thought it was terrific. I think the King should only have to play the winner, though, which is a very interesting topic. And again, we talked about this a little earlier on, that the King of the Hill style tournaments, generally that's how it's played. Whoever the previous King of the Hill is only has to play against the winner of the tournament to defend his title. And that wasn't the case in EPHEX's version, but maybe that's something we can change in the future, or if this is the way EPHEX likes doing it, then we'll just continue doing it this way. But definitely a valid point, I think, that Box had to make. I asked him what he thought about the map selection and the map pool. He thought it was good. If you guys didn't know that this was played on Doodad, Doodad is one of our map makers, staff map makers here at WCR, and he made these NGL style maps. And actually, he was probably one of the first people to implement this type of code into custom mapping. So there's a big thing on whether NGL is using Doodad's maps or vice versa. However, it ended up working out. Either way, we use the Doodad's maps for our tournaments and our things that we do here at WCR to give proper respects to our famed map maker. A lot of his maps are very, very interesting, so if you haven't checked them out, definitely check out some of Doodad's maps. You can check them in his staff profile on the forums, or just look around for them. They're everywhere. I will include the map actually in this audio because they are not standard maps, except for this Plunder Isle map, which was standard Warcraft 3 map that everybody should have. The other games, game 1, 2, and 3, were all played on Doodad's maps. The one thing that's frustrating to me about playing on customized maps, and I understand the value of it, you can add some uniqueness to the tournament and an event by doing things like that. You can add custom flags and make it sponsors and things like that. I really, really like it, but it's very, very frustrating to the people that have to watch these maps because now, if you take a look at my map folder, I have at least 50 different map folders in my maps directory because every person that hosts these games puts it in whatever map folder they like. There's no standard, and no tournament really has a standard set. So I think next time if we were to do this tournament and we want to use Doodad's maps, that's fine, but make it a standard for every replay, and every match that's played has to be in a very, very specific folder, and if it's not in that folder, just void the match. Simply put as that. The viewership should be a priority in these tournaments, and it wasn't in this, I don't think, because even in these last 4 matches, you'll see some of the maps that were named don't even make sense. Like, there's a misspelling, so it's like Duaz maps instead of Doodads. Anyway, I ranted on a little bit about that, but it's something that I feel strongly about, so that's that. In the 2 games, he won as Night Elf. I asked him why he chose Night Elf, although he ended up randoming in this game to get Night Elf, so that was kind of a missed question there and some bad research on my part. The other one that he chose Night Elf, he said that Twisted Meadows, and that was the game 1 that he played, was Twisted Meadows, and he said it was a very bad map for human. So that's why he opted for Night Elf. And during the game, I believe he actually said he wanted to switch to Orc, but he ended up winning. So yeah, he said he wanted to switch to Orc during the game. He actually typed it out. And I asked him why he thought that. He said because Twisted Meadows isn't very good for Elf either. So he didn't think it was good for human, or he definitely didn't think it was good for human. But when he was playing Night Elf, he decided, hey, early on he didn't think it was good for Night Elf as well. So he wanted to play Orc. He said Orc is very strong versus Undead on Twisted Meadows. So either way, he ended up winning that match. Doing very, very well. A very interesting strategy with Warden first. I highly recommend you guys watch that one. Out of the 4 matches, I like this one the most because it's Plunder Isle and a very fun strategy we got to see both players employ, especially Box's forward AOW mass hunts and Tier 1 glaive throwers that were watching tear apart this expansion for the last 10 minutes. But the first game was very interesting because of some micro decisions and some really cool moves. So definitely check out the first replay as well. If there's another replay you watch in the series, check that out. Some other questions that I asked him. If when he plays, does he have like one set strategy in mind and he tries to force it through no matter what? Or does he try to evolve and counter whatever his opponent's strategy is? He says he adapts in general, but that's always a part of the strategy. So basically I think what that means is he probably has a set strategy in mind that he wants to go, and he can know that depending on what race he is, what map it is, and what his opponent is. As soon as he scouts him out, he kind of has a strategy in mind. Adapting is something that everybody does regardless. So I don't know if he probably doesn't take the emphasis on forcing a strategy through no matter what. I don't think you could find any player that really does that and is very successful with it and would condone regular people doing that. thing I want to point out that's interesting about this push here, you'll notice that Box has lost a lot of his Huntresses, and although he's able to recreate them relatively quickly because his AOW is right there, he's losing them not to necessarily Water Elementals or the Archmage, he's losing them to Guard Towers, and if a Guard Tower gets the last hit on a unit, you do not get experience. So that's something interesting. If you're frustrated with human towers and you think that it's Imba, yeah, they're Imba, it's hard to push, but if the hero's not getting the last hit and the Guard Tower is, okay, the unit's dead, but that opponent is not getting experience based on that. So that's something very, very interesting. I didn't even know that Valley had a Mountain King in this one, but he did end up pushing that Mountain King through, which is pretty interesting. Box probably could have gotten the kill on that if he was paying attention a little bit and could have surrounded him. I asked him what his main race was. He did say human, so I had that kind of pre-knowledge going into this audio commentary. I asked him what race he thought was the strongest currently in Warcraft 3 and why. He said Orc, because there are no weaknesses. Ha ha ha. Well, we might have different opinions there. I've done plenty of audio commentaries on why I think there are weaknesses with Orc and that people aren't really taking advantage of them. But I understand that in the masses that people have a general mass opinion that Orc is imbalanced, and I'm not going to argue with him. He's a better player than I am, so he probably has a better insight to the game than I do, but we'll see how that goes. So he definitely thinks Orc is the strongest in Warcraft 3. In the current patch, is it balanced? And I asked him if there was anything that he would change. He said Critical Strike is too raw, and that goes along with his Orc is too imbalanced, or too strong at the moment. So that's interesting to note, that Critical Strike is too strong, and that's definitely an opinion that's shared by very, very many players and people out there. I wanted to know, being as I am going in for education type thing for my career, I kind of want to know, and I like teaching people Warcraft 3, been doing it since I've been commentating. I want to know from a player's perspective, a more advanced player's perspective, what race he would suggest for beginners to play. He made a note that beginners would have problems with any race, and they should play what is most fun for them. If the goal is to get good and get good fast, Undead is simply the easiest race for sure. That is his opinion on that, and I don't know if I agree with that. There are definitely a lot more Orc, Night Elf, and Human players, I think, than there are Undead. And I don't know if that's because those races are just stronger, or if Undead really is a lot easier for them to play, so you just don't see that many players playing Undead. I don't really know. That's the one race I think I haven't spent a lot of time with. And although it's one of my favorite races to play against and play with. When I do ATs, I love having Orc and Undead. I like playing the Orc and having my friends play Undead. I like playing against it as an Orc, because I think obviously Orc is a little bit stronger versus Undead. It's their one race I think they do very, very well against. Raiders and Blade Master, I think, very, very effective versus Undead, especially Undeads that go Fiends, which we do end up seeing in Game 2, where the Orc loses on Secret Valley. So if you guys are wanting to see an upset, watch the Game 2 Secret Valley Box versus Valley, where Box goes Orc, Blade Master versus Fiends on Secret Valley. And Secret Valley is definitely known for one of those maps that are powerful, definitely more in favor of the Orc players, basically because of the two fountains and the very easily Blade Master soloable camps that can get the creep items out here. So we do see this level 6 Priestess of the Moon coming in, and as soon as we get mana for it, we will see this Priestess of the Moon casting off their famed Starfall, which is something you do not see in a lot of games. Aha! Finally, Mountain King gets surrounded, blasts off a Stormbolt to try to kill off that hunt, but he is going to end up dying, and this is going to look pretty funny. If you guys are checking it out, and I'll look up at the top right, Mountain King is just going to die, and the Priest of the Moon is going to get to use her Starfall. So everyone watch the fireworks. It's fun to see Starfall. You hardly get to see too many ultimates in pro-level games, or even semi-pro-level games. You don't see too many ultimates, so it's always nice in a replay where you get to see the level 6 ability of a hero. I asked him why he didn't play Undead, because throughout this finals here, he played every race but Undead. I just assumed it was because he was maybe not as proficient with them, or because he thought they were the worst race, and he just answered simply neither. So I guess we'll have to go wondering why Undead was never chosen by Box. I don't know if he has that much experience with it or what, but he's definitely more powerful. As I saw in his Orc game, his micro, his APM was very, very high, and he was very successful as Night Elf, and obviously he considers Human his main race, so Undead's probably his last most favorable race based on the results of this tournament, and based off of what happened during the event. Didn't get to see him play as Undead. So as this game ends, we're watching Starfall wreck this Valley's base. Valley finally switches to rifles and casters, which is something I thought maybe should have been done a little bit earlier on. Maybe abandoned all those things. He's been constantly repairing this expo for the past 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes. And he's got so many peons at his gold mine. It's silly how his macro kind of lost it here at the end. Just to see. I mean, Valley could beat me hands down. I mean, I'm not that good of a player, and that's why I don't like saying what players should do and what they shouldn't do. But it's definitely would have been interesting to see if Valley had abandoned this Fast Expo a lot earlier than this and ended up trying to switch